everybody. My name is Catherine McAdoo. The title of my speech today is Intelligence Depends on Genetic Factors and Not Environmental Factors. The purpose of this is for me to convince you that intelligence, in fact, is genetic and it doesn't come from your environment. Although my partner will come up here later and try to argue that intelligence depends on the environmental factors, I say that genetic factors are truly what makes us intelligent. So what are we really talking about when I talk about genetics and I talk about intelligence? What we're really talking about here is nature versus nurture, right? My opponent will argue that nature refers to all the random environmental variables that impact who we are, including our childhood experiences, how we are raised, our social relationships, and our culture. But I am arguing that nature refers to all of the genes and hereditary factors that influence who we are, which include our physical appearance, our personality characteristics, and our basic genetic ability to comprehend. So, genetics are what makes us intelligent. All right? Philosophers such as Plato and Descartes suggested that certain things are inborn in us, that they occur naturally, regardless of how we are raised or where we come from. All or most behaviors and characteristics are the result of our genetic inheritance. Characteristics and behaviors are, in fact, results of our evolution. Show of hands, how many people know who Bill Gates is? And we can arguably say that Bill Gates is one of the most smartest men of our time. Bill Gates says that DNA is like a computer program, but far more advanced than any software ever created. Okay? So when Bill Gates looks at a code of DNA molecule, he concluded that it has the same property of sequence specificity that characterizes all computer software, codes, and language. So DNA, our DNA, your DNA, functions like a software program. What is astounding about what he is saying is that digital information in DNA is complex digital information processing system. It's a complex design that uses logic as well as information storage. Logic isn't random, and randomness cannot produce DNA. That means that our environment can't make us smart. So we can infer that poor genetics cannot produce intelligence. I'm going to share with you a personal story. My father was born in the back hills of Pennsylvania on the northern tip of the Appalachian Mountains. Him and his family grew up in abject poverty. They were farmers. They had to hunt for their food. They could barely make ends meet. That's his siblings over there. Now this man, his family as a child would lease out his labor strength to the farms around in the counties. And his first job, he was a grave digger. Can you believe it? But this man went to school in a one-room schoolhouse, okay? And yet, he grew up to become one of the greatest minds of the 21st century in neurochemistry and microbiology. If you Google David McAdoo, there is a plethora of articles and papers that he has written. I remember as a child him traveling all over the world to teach the knowledge that he had. His environment didn't teach him that. Genetics taught him that. You know. I can tell you about my aunt. My aunt is a microbiologist. She came from a little farmhouse in a farm. And she was a part of the team that cloned the goat. If you remember, about 20 years ago, she was actually on that team. Her environment didn't teach her those things. It was her genetics that made her smart. So in conclusion, when we're talking about genetic inheritance, we're saying that certain things occur naturally regardless of our environmental influences. You're going to be smart whether you grew up in the hood or you grew up on a farm. It's your genetics. Reception of genetic qualities are by transferred from parents to their offspring. We learned from Bill Gates, if you remember, that DNA is a complex digital information processing system. Logic is not random, and randomness cannot produce good DNA. Also, from my personal story about my father and his sister, they came from nothing. They, again, went to school in a one-room schoolhouse, How else can you explain rising from the abject poverty and becoming one of the most brilliant minds in neurochemistry, and my aunt becoming one of the most brilliant minds in microbiology? And that is my presentation on how I feel genetics, rather than environment, make you smart. Thank you.